almost feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule!
Welcome, everybody. Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. Real quick, please give our YouTube channel a subscribe, a like, a comment. We also are on all platforms. We have video on Spotify, and we're always recording right here at Engle Studio for all your recording needs in Tucson. Without any further ado, who are we talking about? Excuse me, what are we in the midst of?
We are in the midst of our Fathers and Sons series for all sports pretty much, and we're back on the pitch today, and we're talking about an Italian legend. Not Sylvester Stallone.
You have to make that clear. We're
Paolo Maldini.
Talking about the man from Milan, Paolo Maldini, who, I mean, I have to say, I don't think another player will ever have the same effect on AC Milan that he had. So.
Yeah, no, he's much like his father,
yeah.
we discussed in the last episode. Let's get into it, Chris. Born June 26, 1968 to Maria Luisa and Cesare Maldini. His dad, of course, a famous star defender for AC Milan and the Italian national team, and a fantastic coach, later Paolo's coach for the under-21 Italian team, which saw a lot of future champions go through those doors.
It was definitely a Hall of Fame youth team where you look back and you're like, oh, those were literally the stars that we look at today.
It's like those pitching staffs of the Braves in the minor leagues in the early 90s. You're just like, oh, okay, I see why you're winning all the time. 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and pretty much destined to be a great soccer player.
Played with Milan since he was 10 years old. Yeah. That's something that you don't see, especially with the youth. They kind of bounce around. They'll go to whoever but they were like, Paulo's our guy.
What other team is he going to play for, though? Like, you think if he went to, like, Juventus, his dad would be happy about that?
Well, that's what happens with these kids a lot of the time is they kind of get pushed out at one youth team and either go to a smaller club or a comparable club, or they go to a different country. So I'm just saying,
that's true.
It could have happened with him. The fact that he literally started at 10, plays his entire career for Milan is, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. In 84-85, they win the Coppa Italia Primavera. And he actually, by age, 17 or 16, he's on the senior team.
Yeah, he makes his debut when he was 16. And then literally the following season, they're pretty much playing him all the time. So he pretty much becomes like a senior squad member when he's 17. He starts at right back, but he ends up switching to his more famous left back or left center because Italians play 3 central defenders because they're really into defending, so they play 3 and not 2.
Defense is the name of the game, Chris.
Oh, it's the name of the game.
But it's like 16 years old. You're worried about getting a driver's license or like whether you're going to get your Dairy Queen paycheck or like maybe I'll get laid at the drive-in. No.
He is.
You're playing pro soccer at the highest level.
What was interesting about this Milan team was they were coming off kind of a downswing. They weren't like dominant like when his dad was there. And this is right when they get this influx of Dutch players that we've brought up before.
Yes, we have.
And
Frank Rijkaard.
And Maldini, who's like this kid. So looking back at this like 87 team, they have Frank Rijkaard. They have Van Basten, who was like coming. I think he wins Player of the Year that year.
Yeah, Mario Van Basten and Ruud Gullit.
And then they have Ruud Gullit, which that core group of Milan, everybody kind of looks at as like the Dutch Milan kind of thing, but nobody looks in the back.
That whole Yale thing.
Yes. Nobody looks in the back with Maldini at that point because he's so young, but he is so solid that in 87, they create this squad that
it's like a Death Star.
Yeah,
almost.
because they get 4th in 87, but everybody's looking at it like, oh, this team is amazing. Also in their midfield is Carlo Ancelotti, who will be bring back later.
We've talked about him on this podcast.
Damn right we have. Yeah. Well, he's one of the more famous coaches at this time, but he literally is in this midfield. This is how long Maldini plays.
Yeah, right.
He plays with him in the midfield, and then later on, he's the coach while Maldini retires. I'm just saying.
It's kind of like Melot. He's getting started pretty young, though.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, it's not that bad, but it's still like, God damn, is this Nolan Ryan here?
Yep. And then 88, 89, he probably teams up with maybe his best partnership which is Nesta.
Yeah.
And they were talking about that, where that Milan defense with those two probably were the best. I think in 88 they only conceded 14 goals.
Like, that's ridiculous. That's that Catenaccio style that he's playing
His
back
father
there.
and that's what the Italian kind of thing was like. The backbone of was like, we're not going to lose, we're either going to tie or win.
Yeah.
And that
Play for a tie.
well, that AC Milan team, especially in this era, because ties would give you 2 points and not one, was very much like that. So
All I just think of is low scoring and ties.
serious.
God, I'm sorry.
Well, they tried to get away from that because it was so boring.
Center holds it. But no, they're just absolutely winning everything they possibly can, though, right now. I mean, because they have built an amazing squad. 88 Supercoppa Italiana, and then back-to-back, I believe, European Super Cups as well.
So, and they end up going to back-to-back European champions, which isn't the Champions League, which is the higher one. This is the lesser one. They end up finishing third and second in those. Oh, no. This is like Champions League. It's just named something else. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. But they end up finishing third and second, and everybody was saying, like, oh, this team is this is like the team of the future kind of thing, because they had all these young players. They had all this, great things. The Dutch team started to kind of go to different places, but like you see the Italian backbone of defense is just there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Did you want to go into his career, or did you want to get into the 90 World Cup?
Yeah, we'll do the 90 World Cup.
Okay.
Because it was I mean, we've gone into this World Cup before. Maradona.
Criticizing Italians hilariously, by the way.
That's kind of probably the most famous thing, but it is the 90 World Cup is in Italy.
And the awesome song that came out of it, which helped me learn Italian, which is, I swear to God, it is so late 80s, early 90s and camp value. Oh, God.
And we see him play a tiny bit, but not, because they end up losing to Argentina in the semifinals.
Yeah, but I mean, he plays in all 7 matches.
But not the dominant force. That was what people were saying, was just like he was just kind of like a left back in there. I mean, he's 22 at this point. You know what I mean? So he's still a fucking kid.
What is it? They went 318 minutes allowing 0 goals, though. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
That's just ridiculous.
They went 5 consecutive games without conceding a goal, which I still think is a record.
Yep.
And then lost to Maradona's. If anybody's
penalty kick, they're not losing these games.
If anybody's wondering why they hate Maradona so much, though.
Yes. Go listen to that episode.
I love it.
It is a very good one. But back into his AC Milan days.
So 91, they get a new coach, Fabio Capello, and he is, for all purposes, probably one of the best Italian coaches ever. So he comes in with this team that everybody's looking at as like, oh shit, this is like the up and coming team. This is the next guys, and they proceed to dominate 91, 92.
They go unbeaten.
They go undefeated. So in the late 80s, the team was referred to as the Immortals.
Yeah.
This team, the 91 team, is referred to as the Invincibles.
The New Kids on the Block movie?
Yes.
It's not the guy from The Cosby Show.
Get him, Marky Mark.
Oh, but it's a first of 3 straight, though, for them.
First of 3 straight, and that's what everybody was saying with this 80s run, or this building up. They were like, oh, this is like the team, and this is where we see this Milan dominance where you kind of reference it back to his father, but even then they weren't dominating like this because they weren't going to Europe all the time. They weren't winning 3 consecutive.
No, they're just winning Serie A,
yes.
But the different time for soccer.
It was.
Global soccer
It
now.
was.
Also, they win the 94 Champions League. They beat our old friend Johan Cruyff in Barcelona.
And that's when Frank Rijkaard actually was playing for them, playing for Barcelona, I think, at that time. So it was like these teams meeting up against each other. They went to 3 consecutive UEFA championship finals in that.
Yeah.
So they went in 93, 94, and 95, which is crazy. They ended up losing to Marseille in 93. Beating Barcelona. Oh, they beat Barcelona with a Van Basten. That's who was on it, with Johan Cruyff,
Okay.
Marco Van Basten. And then they won the third one, beating, I forget who they beat.
Was it Liverpool?
It was Liverpool.
Yeah. And he's also at this time the first defender to win World Soccer Magazine's World Player of the Year.
I actually have a quote from that where he said, "We are the engine room instead of getting the glory." That's like, that was the only thing that he said. So like, he was asked about defenders not getting voted for this, and he was like, yeah, we make the shit run. We're not the front. So
Sure, we might not score goals, but we don't allow them. Like Ozzie Smith, man.
Yeah.
Like the Ozzie Smith quote. Like, he saves 2 runs a game.
95, they actually lost to Ajax.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what
that was it, yeah.
And he made his 300th appearance. So this is what I wanted to get in. So he makes his 300th appearance, which is almost compared to his dad, and he's still like 26.
Yeah,
That's
he's
what's
not old.
That's what's fucking crazy about Maldini is he is literally like, we were saying, they are workhorses. They play every game almost. Like he didn't have a huge injury that took him out.
No,
And for this dominant, 88 to whatever it is, I think 97 is when they drop off.
Yeah.
He is playing every fucking game.
And every minute of every game, it seems like. Do you want to do 94 World Cup?
Yep.
Okay, let's get into 94 because this is important.
So World Cup comes to the Americas. Like it's going to again.
Yeah, United States of Americas.
And Maradona gets kicked out.
Maradona yells into a camera.
0 pupils.
0 pupils.
Italy is great in this World Cup.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
If you watch it, they are playing Italian soccer. They're defending wonderfully. They make it all the way to the finals. And this is what I was kind of referencing with the 90, where he wasn't getting like the credit or the, you know what I mean? They weren't looking at him like, oh, this is one of the best defenders, even though they had that huge goalless streak. But in this tourney, they were like, oh, this is the best defender in the world.
Yeah, because they hadn't even qualified for the 92 Euros either. So they like just, get into the 94 World Cup. And Roberto Baggio's there as well.
Check out that episode.
Yeah. So they're kicking ass and taking names all the way to the finals against those damn Brazilians and their fun soccer playing.
What I love about this was I think the Italians were one less World Cup at this point than Brazil.
Oh, man.
They ended up losing this one, and I think Brazil's won 3 more, and Italy has only won 1 more.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where they really could have been on the same level, and then Brazil just kind of... we all know what happens at that. The penalty kick that hit the crossbar that broke Italian hearts. You think about what that could have been with Maldini getting this 1 World Cup win.
Man.
With a lot of these guys getting this 1 World Cup win. Yeah,
and then someone assumes the name of a missing hiker and joins the Miami Police Department.
Well, the laces were housed. There's no laces on a soccer ball. Don't tell me that.
The hexagon was in!
There you go.
God damn it.
The hexagon.
I'm sorry. So we'll get into 97 because you said they kind of had dropped off.
So Capello departure, and that's always a big thing, is this core group of guys that he grew up with are now aging.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that isn't. Everybody else, all the Dutch players are gone.
Now he's the old man on the team.
Nesta's getting older. We see it's almost like a rebuilding. But what I love about his career is he goes through literally all of the ups and downs for 25 years where he's just like,
all the stages,
I went through a rebuild with them for like 3 years, and then we were dominant again. It was just like, oh, I love that. Because this was the time that the rumors of him being getting a transfer, but like everybody said, it was just like he immediately shot that down and was just like, no, I'm never going to play for another team other
Who the
than
hell else am
Milan.
I going to play for?
Well, Real Madrid was supposed to like.
Were they really?
I mean, he was like the best player,
Yeah.
the best defender in the world, and they were like saying like, we'll pay what you want, and
Wow.
because of soccer, so like in American sports. Players can get traded without their will. In soccer, you have to agree to a transfer.
You have to give consent.
You have to give consent. It is very 2022, if you know what I mean.
Good for soccer. So they win the 98-99 Serie A title, I saw.
Which that was a weird one if you look at it, because they kind of had a shitty team, but they kind of came together. I think they actually had the most points they ever had at that point, which was 82. That's
wow.
it was a weird. That's a weird season because they were still in this rebuild, but then 99-2000, that's when the team really almost falls apart.
Yeah. I had read they were the bottom group in the Champions League. They lose the Supercopa to Parma, I believe. Third in Serie A, so it's kind of a down year for a dominant team.
No, this is when they get sixth.
Oh, sixth, yes.
And this is when
Okay.
Maldini's dad comes in to try and right the ship.
Oh,
because
yeah.
They end up not qualifying for the Champions League for the first time.
2000, 2001, yeah.
And that's what some people don't understand is there's a huge money that comes in from Champions League. And we talked about it in our Leeds episode where they were banking on getting this money 2 years in a row by making the Champions League. It literally financially ruined their club for
God,
years.
yeah.
So like, I'm just saying that's why they were saying this was such a big thing, was like they have to be in the Champions League every year. Coming back next year,
They have a new coach.
who do they got?
They got Carlo Ancelotti.
And he comes in and rights the ship. That's
Yes,
the
he
thing
does.
that with these really great coaches where you can kind of see it's just like, well, the team is good enough to win, you know?
2002, 2003, third in Serie A. They win the Coppa Italiana by defeating Roma in the final. And
That's his first Coppa Italiana.
Is it really?
He only has
wow.
one. It's kind of interesting. I think
Almost like his dad, right?
Well, I think he went to 4 or 5 finals, and that's
Oh.
the most finals that he's lost.
Holy cow.
I want to say this, though, because this is when Nesta moves on, and some people say that this was the greatest back line that Milan ever had. So it was Nesta, Cafu, who was a Brazilian who had just beaten him, and then Jaap Stam. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember that from the Manchester United
Oh,
episode.
that's right, yeah.
Where he came out and talked shit on Sir Alex Ferguson, and Sir Alex Ferguson sold him, and he was one of the best defenders. So he comes into this like core group, and that's when we see Milan. I think they went to 6. They went to 3 Champions League finals in 6 years. That's
Yep.
what we're about to get into. Is like this defensive squad is like
This rebirth.
yes,
Almost.
with Angelotti at the head.
Yeah. So then 2002, 2003, they win the Champions League. It was the first all-Italian final. They beat Juventus there on May 28th, 2003.
Yeah.
And they win on penalty kicks, which seems to be the Italian way of winning everything. Just play to a tie.
What was fun about that one was Milan beat their crosstown rivals Inter Milan in the semis,
Yep.
and then went on to beat Juventus, who was like their big rivals in the league. And that's what they were saying was it was such an Italian Champions League. We probably won't ever see that again.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that one was really fun. I actually really liked that one. And then, and then he actually gets voted. This is when he
Yeah.
starts to get all of the praise that people are like, yeah, he's been doing this for 15 fucking years. What
And
are
he's
we
still in
talking
his
about?
early 30s.
Yes, but
Oh, God.
he starts to get this praise. Pele comes out and he's just like, yeah, he's one of the 100 best players of all time. And you're just like, yes, thank you. So let's get into 2004, 2005.
Okay, yeah, because this is an important. We've actually talked about this before. There's a whole episode for it.
This Champions League final is one of the best games if you're a Liverpool fan, one of the worst games if you're a Milan fan.
Yes, you are.
He actually had a quote saying that this was the worst moment in his career.
Yes,
Especially
it is.
thinking about how it went down to, like, Milan literally went up 3-0 in the first half.
One of the goals scored by
My man.
Paolo.
And like we were saying, he's not a goal scorer.
No.
That was something else that he said. He was like, I thought I scored in a final of a Champions League that we were going to win.
Yeah.
And that was the feeling going in 3-0 with that defense. That's the other thing was they were known to have the best defense. They were up 3-0, and Liverpool got 3 lucky-ass goals.
And then I believe they played some Phil Collins at halftime for Mr. Steven Gerrard in
Damn
Liverpool.
right. And that, I don't know a Phil Collins song. I just tried to make a reference to it, and I was like, I can't get one to my, just the name of one.
Well, I mean, this loss put him in a very studio mood,
There you
Chris.
go.
Oh, in the air tonight. Oh.
In the air tonight.
There it
Studio. So they proceed to lose penalty shots.
He said it was the most devastating loss of his career. And this dude lost a World Cup final.
Yep.
Like, that had to just sting, like, a lot, actually. Moving on after the devastating loss to Liverpool. Now he's starting to rack up games played records, like a lot of them.
He's getting into 500, 600, that kind of shit.
700, 800 at this point. Yeah. Let's see. 2006, 2007. They do have a point deduction issue, though.
So
you want to get into that?
I want to talk about this. I'm kind of going to glaze over it because I kind of want to do an episode on it.
Yeah.
But Milan and Juventus were busted match fixing. So they were essentially bribing referees to make sure that at the end of the game they would get a penalty if they needed it or not get a penalty if they needed it. And people were saying that this was happening in Italy for decades. I'm not exaggerating. This was like the thing. The mafia doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist at all. It's just a fantasy.
But that's what they were saying, and then they finally caught Juventus and Milan doing it. Juventus was so egregious with their thing that they actually relegated them.
Yeah,
to
they
Serie A.
relegated them. They just basically docked points for Milan.
And they both kind of were docked points, but like Juventus was docked points and relegated, and Milan was just docked points. We talk about the Italians and their loyalty. Buffon, say his first name.
Gianluigi.
Stayed with Juventus as their goalie when they got relegated, brought them back up, and was their goalie for like 25, 30 years.
Oh, my God.
That was like the guy who stayed with them when they got relegated. So that's the kind of shit that I love more than anything. But they said this next year, because they ended up getting 4th with their point deduction.
Yeah.
If they didn't have the point deduction, I think they actually would have won that year.
Yeah, but they still qualify for the Champions League. And what do they do, Chris?
And they go on and they beat Liverpool 2-1 in Athens. And that's what he was saying about this. He was just like that. The game in, I believe it was Istanbul, was my worst moment of my career. But coming back the next year or whatever, I think it was 2 years, and beating Liverpool 2-1, it didn't write that, but it was definitely like a.
I mean, it definitely helps.
Yes.
I mean, it still hurts, but it still feels better.
And he is, like you were saying, he's breaking all these.
And he was the oldest captain to win ever.
Oldest captain to win at 38. On September 25th, I believe in 2006, he broke the Serie A record for appearances with 571.
Oh, man.
He just is, like we were saying, he just constantly is playing for over 25 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's playing in like 1,000 matches throughout his career. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
to have that kind of reliability and be that steady and be that rock for a defensive-oriented team. And I mean, that has to take a toll on your body, but the fact he's out there every single game is ridiculous.
Well, that's really what people are saying, like the amount of games. So 2007, 2008, he said it was going to be his last season.
Yeah.
They convinced him to come back for one more season, and I'm really happy he did, because in 2008, 2009, he gets his 1,000th professional appearance, which is so absolutely insane. I can't even, that's so many games.
He's like 40 years old.
And he has 900 at the end of the season. He has 900 appearances for Milan. Nobody will ever get close to that ever again. It's such an insane. We were talking about how many his dad had at 350 and being like, that's a lot. That's a third of what he did. I'm just saying,
he played for 20 plus years.
He played 25 seasons. He won 26 trophies. He was a finalist in the Champions League 8 times,
Oh,
which is
man.
only tied by one Real Madrid player, and that guy was not the captain. He was the captain for like 6 of those finals.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, he is the man in Milan, and he ends up retiring 2009. The immediate question is, are you going into management?
Yep.
And his immediate response
Nope.
is, I will never manage a team, which I loved so much.
Yeah.
Because he knew himself, and he's just like, no, managing is not me.
I'm not my dad.
And then he bounces around as technical director in different
Yeah.
things, but he ends up landing the technical director position at Milan, which everybody was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah.
So he did some like MLS stuff. He did some
Miami team or whatever,
Yep.
and the Nassel trying to get into MLS. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Sorry.
no.
Brain fart. But yeah, the technical director in 2018, and then or by 2019, and then they just recently won the Serie A title with him in charge
Yep.
of the technical direction of the squad.
And they were in a bit of a decline. I think Juventus won like 6 consecutive. I'm not exaggerating about this. So when
Did they really?
Yeah.
God damn.
So when Milan won, it was a big deal. I want to say this as to why the Maldinis are a dynasty is his son now is beginning to play center back for AC Milan.
Yeah, his Christian was on the youth team, but I think Daniel is the one who's starting to play for AC Milan.
Daniel Maldini is the guy, and they're saying he's still young. He might become a huge center back in this team,
wow.
which I love it so much because I remember when I first saw AC Milan and I saw some guy with Maldini on his, and I was like, wait a second, what's happening here?
Did I just travel back in time?
He unretired, so they retired his number 3. He
Yeah.
unretired it so his son could wear it.
Oh, like Brett Hold it or Bobby Hold
Like Bobby Hold
Yeah,
it. So
that's-
I'm just saying, like, all of this stuff, it all spider webs. And for me, I think Maldini might be my favorite Italian soccer player ever.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed learning about him because, like I said, not necessarily didn't really follow soccer, but this is getting more interesting by the day.
Yep.
So definitely an interesting person and probably the god of Italian defense for this era and possibly all time. Just a shame he didn't get that World Cup locked up, I would say. But
Yeah,
other than that,
That's the way it goes. There can only be one winner every 4 years. So
damn Olympics.
thank you all.